regular budget, I'll have a copy for you. All right, on old business, it's the old fire department. We received a contract from the fire department a while back, about a month and a half ago. And we had a problem with it, and so we submitted a contract for $1.50 million, which is the same millage that Beaver's paying. And Al, I checked on that to make sure. I called Alan Ward, and he hadn't got any notice that there was going to be a raise on it, and he also said that they didn't have any wiggle room. And so they're paying $1 million to Hesperia for the southern half of that township, and they're paying $1.50 million to Walkerville for the northern half of the township. So anyways, we submitted a contract for $1.50 million, the same as what Beaver's paying, and the fire board turned that down. So I gave you some comparison charts, and you really don't need to discuss them, but they're for your own knowledge. And so in this proposed contract, I'm suggesting we just pay 2 mills. A 5-year contract at 2 mills, locked in. We won't get raises that way, and it won't slip any additional costs on the settlement. There is one thing in the contract: we'd have to draw up an ordinance for the fire department to be able to collect from the homeowner's insurance the $500 or whatever their company pays out for additional, I don't know what do you call it.
We don't do that.
I knew you didn't, but in the first contract that was submitted to us from the fire department now, they had that in there, and so I just matched it with what they had with just some clarification on it, that was all. So, yeah, Walkerville doesn't do that, and Jerry had said in the past that they didn't do it because the homeowner already has hardship if they lose, property. And but it protects us, and it protects the homeowner, and it protects the fire department. So I know that on our board there's been a discussion about whether we're paying 2 mills without representation on the fire board, and I don't really see that as a problem. What I see is we just get fire protection and move on. So Craig Herman called me, and he's the vice chair of the fire department, fire board. He called me this evening, asked me what we were going to do, and I told him that I put 2 mills on this, which would be $68,252, versus 1.5 mills at $51,191, and the voters approved 2 mills. So I put 2 mills on this without representation on the board. And I said to Craig, if I'll send this Wayne Tanner's out of town, I believe, for the month. So I said to Craig, I'll send this to your house tomorrow if we approve it, and it'll be up to you to get approval. But we're not going to make another offer. They'll have to approve this, or everybody's SOL.
They did vote to appoint me to be on the board during the contract year.
Yeah, as a
representative of the people.
Yeah.
Well, now,
Liaison.
Yeah.
question.
A liaison.
Larry was just telling Doug that means he has voting rights.
Yes.
But not for the township. Just
Not-
so that's understood. He does not vote for this township.
I
or
vote
any
for the
township
people.
At all.
He
is
didn't when he was
specifically-
for us.
He is specifically is voting for a people's advocate. That's the way it's stated in these minutes that we have a copy of.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
So then, is that liaison position when Larry chooses to be done a position that would be for a Colfax representative, or someone from Colfax, or is that gonna be anybody?
No,
According
that's
to
gonna
these
be
minutes
whoever
here,
they appoint.
That is set by the fire board. Fire board can choose who they want to
So they
set
put
up.
one more in out of Leavitt, and then the numbers are really
They
more.
can't
Well,
really
it
do,
already is, it's 5-2,
I
so
know,
they
that's the
can't
problem.
accomplish anything the other way.
they really can't do that with our fire authority agreement change. And, so the fire board does not have the authority to appoint another board member, an extra board member. Number 7 is, I got a note from Jimmy Yancey, number 7. And, but that's their business, because we're not gonna be part of that fire authority, and that's their business.
So then, my next question would be, if the fire authority, if the fire board doesn't have the right to violate the fire authority agreement by appointing somebody to another position, how are we negotiating with the fire board on a contract when it's not a contract with the fire board, it's a contract with the authority?
Oh, that's a
and the
good
authority-
question. So I asked our attorney that, I've read the agreement many, many times. The fire board can make a contract, but they can't let another member into the fire authority. So the fire authority has to determine if another member joins them, but the fire board can make a contract.
It's not the way I read the fire authority agreement. I read it, the fire authority, the 4 entities were in charge of making the contract, or at least approving and voting on the contract.
That is the way it's stated.
That's the way I read it.
They're making, the fire board's doing what the fire board.
It sounds
Well,
like they've
that-
overstepped their bounds as a fire board and made a contract and tried to get us to sign it when we really don't have to sign it anyway, because in my mind, it's not even valid, because it's not from the fire authority.
So today I asked that very same thing, Doug, with Mr. Herman's. And Sandy was by my house today, Kerwin, and she asked me to ask for a fire authority meeting to approve a contract that we offer up tonight. And that's not gonna happen.
Because we did offer to do that before, and the authority chose not to meet with anyone.
Yeah, we've asked them twice. We've asked the fire authority twice to have a meeting.
And can we clarify that? Because I've heard, I'll just tell you what I've heard. I've heard that you guys asked for a meeting of the fire authority, and Elbridge said yes, and the village said yes, and Leavitt said no. Then I heard that the village said, well, maybe, but not that night, and then the Leavitt didn't hear it at all. Can we just clear up, did we
Sure.
ask for a meeting?
I'm the one that was the mediator on that, and so the last time I asked was for a meeting in early January. Craig Hermans called me back about 4 days after I asked him because I'd been at his hall, and he'd have been the leader in the past couple, and so I asked him to arrange a meeting. And so he was busy with the county and with the farm show. So he asked me, he didn't have Mark Metz's phone number, the president of the village. So he asked me to call Mark Metz, and I said I would, and I did. And then he said he would call Emma Kerwin. And so Emma called me on Friday and said, I heard that you're trying to organize a meeting. And I said, no, I'm not trying to organize a meeting. I asked Mr. Hermans to organize a meeting. And so Emma says, well, she hadn't heard from Mr. Hermans. So I said, and she said she wasn't available on the 17th. That would have been a Thursday evening at 7:30, and she wasn't available. So I said, well, you need to get together with Mr. Hermans and find out a date that's available, that you can agree on. I said, and we'll just work around whatever you get, and you have to work that with Mark Metz and of the village council. So Mark Metz, when I talked to him, he was real friendly and all right, and he said that was no problem. He didn't have a problem at all with it. And so Emma met with, or called her board members, and she talked to Mr. Hermans, and they didn't want a meeting. They didn't see a point in a meeting. That's what was relayed back to me, Emma. So so a no, meeting never happened. And, so we're at this point.
But we tried.
We tried, yes.
Okay, that was my question, because after November's meeting, when I was still on the fire board with Larry, we came to this board and said, here's a contract they want us to sign, but what we really need to do is have a meeting of the fire authority, and this board said, okay, we'll set that up and we'll have a meeting, and now we're in February.
How many times have we tried, and they keep moving the goal?
Well, here's my follow-up then. If we try to set a meeting with the fire authority, and that's 4 entities, and 3 wanna have a meeting and 1 doesn't, then what do you do? What do you do if 1 entity's not willing to have a meeting to try to solve something?
I really don't want any conversation from
Well,
people that are, wait a minute,
Since it's
that,
a
let me
small
finish.
entity, can I address
No,
that?
let me finish. I really do not want a conversation from people that aren't of this township residents. However, because I've, brought your name up, I'll let you speak.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was my understanding that that meeting was specifically for us to vote yes or no on Colfax coming back into the authority. I talked to many people, not just my board, and I definitely got the feeling that it wasn't gonna be a yes vote. So, knowing that, why?
And that was
have a
your
meeting?
decision to decide that we shouldn't have a meeting because your feeling was they was all gonna vote against it?
After I talked to quite a few people, that was the impression I was left with, that it wasn't going to be a yes vote.
And like I said, that was not your decision.
Right, and
So,
and just to clear this.
If a decision made, I passed it off to Craig, and I said to Craig, I don't see any reason for it, I don't think it's gonna be a yes vote. And I'm not gonna quote Craig, I'm not gonna throw him under the bus, but he decided that we just wouldn't have the meeting. And I decided that's a good idea. I don't think it would've been a yes vote.
yes, ma'am.
I've attended a couple of those meetings with the fire board regarding that, and we own vacation homes here, so we actually can't vote, I just pay extra taxes because I don't live here. But
Lucky you.
to me, I don't know how long, I can't remember, I've looked at so many different reports and stuff, that we've all been together in a fire authority, with the fire department in Walkerville. But it's the residents of this community that's gonna suffer if we don't have a fire department.
I agree.
And under my understanding, this all started over funds not being reported like they should have, receipts not being taken in, and Colfax Township was calling them out on that.
Actually,
And
can I interrupt you just a second? Actually, it was Elbridge that was calling them out. And Elbridge come over here in October of 2016 and suggested that $300,000 to $500,000 had been misappropriated. And so Mr. Mumper was the supervisor at that time. So a motion was made by that board at that time to withhold funds until April 15th. And so that passed unanimously. Then it went from there. So go on.
And I understand the frustration and them not following the rules and doing things correctly, but then I see that Colfax Township was the only one of all of them in this whole fire area that uses Walkerville Fire Department that said, either you're gonna do it this way or we're gonna pull out. So I called my insurance company and she said, you by all means let me know whether or not you're gonna have fire and rescue in your area, because they can take my fire off, they can make me not have any insurance to do this. They don't have to cover them. So the residents in the area are the ones that are gonna suffer, and they obviously agreed to pay $2 million. So it needs to be, the residents of the community that you guys work for need to be thought of when all the frustration of all of the financial stuff.
Do you have any idea how much thinking we've been doing about
I
this
understand
for
that.
3 years?
I understand, I've been following it.
I wake up thinking about the fire department, I go to sleep thinking about the fire department. I'm sick of the fire department at the moment.
But we need it. Our
I know we
residents
do.
here need that fire and rescue.
But we need some people in there that are responsible. And we need some that ain't got a vendetta or a grudge or whatever.
Yeah, this year, they've got $27,000, the fire chief submitted budget, it was $27,000 wage increase. They were operating on $158,000. He submitted a request for $27,000 in salary and wage increase to push it up to about $194,000 or $95,000. So I wonder about the responsibility there concerning a volunteer fire department. All right, I want to cut this off. All right.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Back to the representation thing. So I applaud you for putting one for the team and hopefully putting a contract forward so that
We have actually put several contracts forward,
I
just
know.
so you're aware of that.
No, I
We
know,
have
but
not
I mean,
forgot our
I
people.
feel like at this point, we're just we're bent over with our pants down.
And we have a contract right here,
Right.
we're gonna give them the 2 mills, we just wanna be done, have you guys have fire coverage.
But to do our part as residents with the representation, can we still go to those fire meetings?
Certainly,
Yeah.
public anytime, any meeting.
Yeah, they might not give you time on the floor, but you
Well, I
can
know,
go.
but I can listen and.
They can't deny them, when it's open, like the 3 minutes of open, they can't deny them a talking. Right? So
I
you'd
don't
have
think
3 minutes
anybody
going
would.
open for them to speak at the fire board meeting. And I wish everybody would, because that's where you'll really see the back and forth.
That's where you see the grudges going.
We joined the fire department, by the way. We were contracted before with Walkerville Area Fire Department. And then we joined the fire department under a mutual agreement and formed the fire authority in '79. All right, board members, is there any discussion at this point?
Nope.
Can we have a motion to propose the contract with 2 mills at $68,252 for 5 years locked in?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Me.
All right. Motion passed. Any other comments?
I have a
Yeah.
couple,
Yeah.
what about an audit? Has there ever been an audit done? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a book at my house. If you wanna read the last 11 years of audits, I will be more than happy to let you read them, and you will see every single year the discrepancies that's in them audits. And they have been repeatedly asked to correct things, and they have never been corrected. They are still not corrected if you read last year's audit. But if you would like to come to my house, or I can meet with you, I'll get them to you so they
They
can.
do have a bookkeeper now, so it should be coming around, but they can only do so much too.
And
but-
Gail Merton from Elbridge got the 11 years of audits for us from H&S. And every one of the board members here had an opportunity to read them. Somebody else, I see a hand down there.
Yeah, I guess, a couple things, back to this meeting, or not having a meeting, or you didn't wanna have a meeting because you thought they were gonna vote no or yes, or, when I was sitting at the fire board table with Larry and the rest of the fire board in November, they said, get the authority together, which is the 4 entities, have a meeting. If they say you're in, you're in. There wasn't a vote that needed to be had to say we're voting them back in. The question was, were we ever out? If we sent a letter of intent and said we intend to withdraw, but then we rescinded that and we didn't withdraw, and it was all within the time frame, were we really out or were we really in? That was the question. And Tanner said, get a meeting, if they say you're in, you're in. So there really wasn't a vote needed to vote us back in. It was just the entities, the 4 getting together to discuss whether they actually accepted our letter of intent and we were out. And I know for sure that Mr. Hermans from Elbridge said their board never discussed it and accepted it. So if one of the entities didn't accept it, even if yours and yours did, we weren't really out. So that was the whole intent of getting that meeting together. Now,
Which would have simply been just finding out if they had accepted it. It would have been a matter of looking at minutes, and then it would have been a.
Yeah, so all those entities are gonna have minutes, and in their minutes, they're either gonna have discussed it and said, yeah, we accept it, or no, we didn't discuss it, or whatever. So, but we're at the point we're at now, so unless we can get the fire authority together before March 1st, which is highly unlikely, we're gonna have to do this contract. My question is, during this 5 years, are we gonna work as a township to get back in the fire authority and rewrite a fire authority agreement, or are we just going for 5 years with no representation?
At this point, Mark, Doug, they don't even wanna discuss us being in that fire authority.
Nor do they want to discuss
All they want
rewriting
is
the
our
fire
money.
authority agreement.
Because we pay them all. If you sit down and figure it out per fire, what we did, and I have a chart right here if anyone wants to look at it. We pay approximately $6,800 per fire every time they're called out here. We had 7 fires. There's 26 runs a total. If you divide that, you're paying almost $3,000 per run, even if it's EMT.
And Beaver has Walkerville had 234 runs last year. Approximately 2/3 of them runs are EMS, and Beaver has approximately 7% of them runs. We average approximately 11% of them runs. And just as Louise said, so approximately 66% of the runs that come to this township, 66% of the 26 runs are EMS. The others are fire or fire related.
So was the answer, no, we're not gonna try, was the answer from the board, no, we're not gonna be trying to help rewrite the fire authority agreement and get back
At
in?
this point, Doug, I don't know what our option is because they don't even want to have a meeting with us.
If
They
we are
do not wanna-
invited, we would love to.
Cause that's and what, for the people that are here that don't know, that's what really needs to happen, is the fire authority agreement from 2001 needs rewrote better, more like the 1988 one that was.
All you people that are showing up here need to pressure the other ones.
In 1980, they wrote an agreement, a real good agreement in 1979. And everybody signed on to it. It was real good. The fire authority actually had fire authority. And the board was actually managed the fire department. Not the fire runs or the EMS runs or the day-to-day process, but the financial parts of it and the policy-making parts. So in 1980, they revised it a little bit, and it actually was a little better. Then in 91, it was a lot worse. And in 2001, it was a disaster when it was redone. I mean, I got them all. If you take the 2001 to the 1981, and it's remarkably different, and it just guts the fire authority.
Yeah, this seems like a Band-Aid to me being, I'm sorry, go ahead. It just seems like, I mean, being that I sat on the fire board, and I can tell you the fire department's not, the guys, the firefighters like Al, they're good.
They're absolutely excellent.
The fire board needs to be a checks and balances and approval system when somebody needs to buy a hose or a new pair of boots that you can, but it just seems to have got to the point where the fire board thinks they're the fire authority, and if you don't have a voice, if the Colfax Township doesn't have a voice anymore in this process, it can go right back to the way it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when this started in the first place, because there's no accountability, and it can run amok again. So if we don't have the ability,
It's already there.
if we don't have the ability in 5 years to help rewrite a fire authority agreement and get back into having some say, it's gonna be Walkerville and Leavitt against Elbridge and nothing. I mean, just Larry and I got beat up at nights on that board sometimes with voting. It was just, they'd laugh at you and say, it's 2 against 4 or 5, we do whatever you want.
Al, you've been patient.
Sorry, Al.
Did you 2 meetings ago say that you took that, withdrawal that you sent to the fire board, saying you were gonna withdraw from it? Didn't you say that you took it to your lawyer, and your lawyer said that was, you're right, that you don't have no, representation?
That's correct.
So now you're coming back saying that.
I'm not saying that, Doug is.
Okay, now you're coming back saying that it's the fire board's problem, that they're the ones that did it, and it's not. It was legal when he sent it in there as of August 1st, that was legal.
That's
Boom,
correct.
they're done. So when you come back a month later, say, okay, now we're gonna come back in, we wanna come back in, you're too late. You already got a month.
But the fire authority could have met and said, we don't think you're out.
Well, they did.
And if they would, that's the point, if they would have, we would have been in, we wouldn't have been out, we'd still be in. We wouldn't need a contract.
I move we adjourn.
Yeah, can I have a second on that, Journey? Second. All in favor? All right, folks, we're gonna submit this to Mr. Herman's tomorrow. He'll arrange a fire board meeting. They'll either accept it or reject it.
can I ask something just off the record with them? Cause I just have what if they don't approve this new contract?
They will approve it.
They will,
They
so we
will.
know that it's written.
But they
to approve
can't,
it.
they can't operate without.
I'm almost positive they will because of
Now, here,
last
thank
fire
you.
board meeting, right?
Look, good luck.
I know that.
It's not a missing match, you got all the
It's a little gray area in there.
And right now, for us, those are the kind of fire contracts. Personally, everyone else gets it as, even though it's out of the board, it's not our house.
Everybody. He's the one that's going to drive the boat. They said the night. Yep.